Music for this episode of About to Break is provided by Cat Beach Music. Whether you're looking to score an entire film or just need to find the perfect vibe for your next commercial project, our friends Bobby and Jen Hartree have what you're looking for. Check them out today at catbeachmusic.com. Happy New Year, friends. Welcome back to the About to Break podcast. This is episode 96, and we are finally back from break. I know it was only a few weeks, but to me it seemed like an eternity because there were so many incredible people that I wanted to introduce you to, and so many great conversations I wanted us to be able to have about some of these things that these brilliant artists and entertainers have shared. So I'm excited. I'm excited that some of these conversations we've been recording I can finally put out there and share with you. Today is no exception. I've got Stuart Horwitz on the show. He's an incredible author and has really made his living helping other people create their books. He works for a company that he founded called Book Architecture, and they basically help artists go from, going, I got this great idea for this book, to actually seeing it in their hand, in print, in stores. And so this is a great episode, not only from like the business side of writing a book and like actually getting the work done. What does that look like? And what are some tips from Stuart? But he's just an incredible dude, and he's got a great story that I know you're gonna really enjoy. So I'm excited to introduce you to Stuart. Before we get into that, over the break, I said we were going to be revamping things. There was going to be some new content and new things we were working on. So I'm very excited to give you 3 quick announcements for the podcast for 2019. Announcement number 1 is we want to thank the Patreon supporters, everyone who is a producer of this show by giving $1 or more a month on Patreon. Thank you to everyone who's continued to support month after month. It does cost money to put this show on and to get to the guests and to record with them. And so I want to thank everyone who's been supporting us financially on Patreon. Because of that, we are adding, this is the first announcement, we are adding another episode that's going to be a video-based episode, and it's only going to be on Patreon. So every Monday, I'm going to do what's called a 5-Minute Monday. And on these 5-Minute Monday episodes, it's going to be an opportunity for me to share some personal insights, some challenges, and really share some tips that I have found to be hugely successful for anybody who is wanting to do what they love and try to pay the bills doing what they love. So it'll be just a time every single week for me to sit down and share some thoughts and tips and some encouragement that has helped me being a full-time entertainer. So if you want to check that out, you can get access to that for only $1 or more a month by supporting us on Patreon. So maybe some of you can give $1, maybe some of you can give $5, whatever you can give. It really does support us in producing these shows, and I want to thank everyone for doing that. To check that out, go to abouttobreakpodcast.com and click on the Become a Producer button, or you can go to patreon.com/about to break. Again, that's patreon.com/about to break. The second thing is we will end each and every episode from now on with a breaking point. And this is my opportunity to share with you my big takeaways. Every time we have these conversations, I take notes afterward, and I talk with Katie, and we just kind of share with each other what I learned. And, there's things that we try to apply to our lives. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could have that conversation together? So the second big announcement is every episode is going to end with a new segment called Breaking Point, where I'm going to share with you my takeaways from that conversation, and not just only the conversation that you hear, but my interactions with these incredible artists and entertainers, both on the day we record and just other times when we're hanging out, things that I've learned, kind of takeaway lessons from their life. So that's number 2. And the third thing is, I don't want to just share my breaking point with you. I want to hear your breaking point. I want to hear, what are the things that you're challenged with? What are the things that you're really finding breakthrough in? Maybe there's some things you've applied to your life, or some discoveries you've made as an artist that can help the rest of us here at About to Break. And I want to be able to share that with all the listeners. So I've set up what I'm calling the break line. I feel like there should be but not a crash, not like that kind of break line, but it's like, because it's called About to Break. you get it. Anyway, it's the break line, and this is a phone line where you can call and you can leave a message and you can let us know where some area that you're having a big breakthrough right now. What's something awesome that's happening? You can share a challenge that you're having, or maybe a question that you have for other creatives and artists, and we can get feedback and share that here on the podcast. So if you've got a question, if you've got a comment, if you want to share your breaking moment, take a moment and call us at the break line. The number is going to be available on our website, abouttobreakpodcast.com, but I'll give it to you right now. It's 323-524-7456. Again, that's 323-524-7456. If you've got a breaking point you'd like to share, either something that's going great or something that's going terrible, this could be your time just to vent and let it all out. Call us here at About to Break. Leave us a message, 323-524-7456. And of course, you can always email us at abouttobreakpodcast@gmail.com. So we're super excited. Great things coming here at About to Break. But right now, let's get into episode 96. Sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with writer and book architect, Stuart Horwitz.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
Hey everybody, welcome to About to Break. I'm your host, Taylor Hughes, and right now I am sitting in sunny Southern California with Stuart Horwitz. Stuart, thank you for being here, man.
It's my pleasure. The best part about it is being in Southern California.
I know, right? We've had some interesting weather as of late. It's been unpredictable, but this is one of the most beautiful kind of days you're going to get in SoCal. So,
yeah.
And where are you from originally?
Well, originally I'm from Philadelphia.
Okay.
But, like Bob Dylan said, I ran away 17 times. They called me every time but the last time.
Yep.
I only ran away twice.
Okay.
It was for 3 days each, and my parents knew where I was, so it probably doesn't count.
Did they know because you told them I'm going to so-and-so's house, or because they just, had that parental GPS and knew internally where you would go?
One time I ran away, I was with my sister at college.
Okay.
So obviously she ratted on me.
Yeah.
And the other time, my friend's father, who was a psychiatrist before that was cool.
Okay.
I don't know if that's cool now, but
right.
He let me stay there on the condition that he would tell them.
Okay. Were these because of fights with the folks, or just wanting to have an adventure, or what made you want to take off?
It was a poor fit.
Okay.
Yeah.
A poor fit?
Growing up, it was a poor fit.
Okay. Within the family, you just felt like the family doesn't get me, or?
Yeah, pretty much. That's where I got my love of reading from.
Okay.
Because feeling like people in these books make sense.
Yeah.
And they say things that make sense. They say what they're thinking. And what they're thinking is something that they've, is a development of something they've thought about before.
Right.
It's really liberating.
Wow. What kind of books were you reading at the time?
I was reading like Russian short stories.
What?
Like
at what age?
12, 10. I read Moby Dick when I was 10.
Okay.
And War and Peace when I was 10. And, it's just my thing.
Did you just find them on a bookshelf, or did someone introduce you to them? Because normally 10 and 12-year-olds aren't finding Moby Dick.
Bookstores.
Okay.
I would bug to get books bought for me.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of books. Could never have enough books. In fact, at one point my father said, "Don't you have enough books, Stuart?" That was the moment, I think, in which I was like, we're actually never going to see eye to eye.
Wow.
Dad, if you're listening, there's still hope, I think, for us.
Yeah.
But, who knows? What's it called? Atonement with the Father. Anyway,
yeah.
That's, not to. That's
totally.
a story that hasn't been written yet.
Wow. What is Dad's background? What is his?
He's a lawyer.
Okay.
And grew up in a family of immigrants, small house, one bathroom, just sort of very predictable that he would do what he did, and very predictable that I would do what I did.
Yeah. But
there's always like that happy ending. We're kind of waiting for that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love the hope that you have, that because a lot of people, they get to a certain point in life and they just say, well, that's just how it is. And even just on the few minutes we've been talking, you've alluded several times now to there's still hope, could still turn it around.
Right. Well, we're both still alive, right?
Yeah, buddy.
So, but I think I have taken that, and I pay a lot of attention to my fathering of my two daughters.
Yeah.
So just really keyed up on making sure that I'm hearing them. We're getting a chance to talk.
Yeah. How old are your kiddos?
19 and 12.
Yeah.
And both of us go away for a week individually a year.
Okay.
So I'll go away with my 12-year-old for a week. I'll go away with my 19-year-old for a week.
That's great. And is that always the same kind of location, or how do you choose what you're going to do?
It's pretty much all different. I went away with my 19-year-old on her college break freshman year. We traveled Route 66.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was really happy that she still wanted to talk to me about anything, you know, but like we sort of like became good friends in the car in high school when things were so rough, but like we would still be in the car on the way to school, and inevitably somebody would say something or put on a good song, and, you know, we would just start talking again.
Yeah.
So Route 66 was great. It was,
Did you do Chicago to LA, or
Chicago,
where did you?
we actually had to cut it off in Falstaff because I had a gig in Phoenix. So we went down to Phoenix, and we're going to finish it up at some point. But, you know, people were like, did you see the Grand Canyon? And we're like, no, but we did catch the Palomino Motel sign at sunset.
Yes. That's the best.
So
those road trips, man, I am a huge proponent of road trips for the family.
yeah.
I have two girls. They're 10 and 13.
Mm-hmm.
And last summer I had some gigs throughout Texas, and we you know, we thought, what do we want to do on the way to Texas? So we went up to Yosemite, because, you know, that's to Yellowstone, because that's on the way from California to Texas.
Right.
And so we spent a week camping, and then we went all through Denver down to Austin, and then went all the way back through New Mexico, Arizona. We did like 5,000 miles in 2 weeks, and the stories of the things that were unplanned along the way are the things we still talk about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what the road can do.
Yeah.
Give you about that, you know?
When you became a father, was that relationship that you had with your father, were you very intentional immediately of like, I want to write a new story with my kids? Or
Probably. When my wife was pregnant with our first child, I wrote a pregnancy journal that was basically all the things that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Differently, I guess. And I never gave it to her because I turned it into the first draft of my memoir, which is the big project I'm working on now.
Very
so
cool.
I turned that in. I gave that to her when she left for college, which was, you know, a year and a half ago. And so but when I go back through that journal, it's got a lot of the starts of what I'm working on now.
Yeah.
But it's a younger man, obviously, who's just, you know, just trying desperately to get free, or not even get free, but like take the principles that I already knew I had and put them into play. I'm all excited to get started, you know, and it's like, she's like 4 months old, and I'm like, tell me who you are and I'm going to embrace you. You know, and she's just like, what? It's like, I'm 4 months old. Like nothing, you'll get nothing from me for a while.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's, I can't believe we're friggin' 6 minutes into conversation. Our mutual friend Adam connected us, and I'm so glad that you did. We're sitting here at Adam's house doing this. Adam knows this. I am obsessed with wonder. I'm fueled by it. And immediately I'm just getting from you this sense of like, life has unlimited possibilities, and we get to write our own stories. And I mean, that's obviously defined what you do for work and what's a passion for you. Was it reading Moby Dick and all that as a kid that really captured the power of stories for you?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I knew I wanted to be a writer at 7.
Yeah.
But you know, how are you going to make a living at that? Right?
Was that the question Dad asked right away?
Was the question, not just Dad, you know, it's like, I come from a family of, you know, it's like, that's just not a suitable life path. I mean, you know, you can be a doctor, a lawyer, an Indian chief. You can do whatever it is that, you know, is labeled as a profession, but, you know, to be able to use a creative faculty and combine it with being an entrepreneur.
Yep.
And there's no safety net, and there's no 401k.
Right.
There's no like, who would ever sign off on that? You know, I mean, you know, so maybe.
Yeah. I mean, every time we talk to a different artist, that's the struggle we all feel. And ironically, how many people do you know that you've heard the story? They worked for the same business for 20 years. They had the 401k, they had the security, and then a change in leadership, and they're gone, you know? So it's really just an illusion of security. I think that we feel like in corporate America we have.
That's right. And at least we don't have to work for the asshole boss.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. We have clients or audiences or colleagues, you know, we're you know, that we have to clarify our role with, but we get to be our own men and women.
Yeah.
Which feels really good. And, maybe that's all we're supposed to do before we die anyway. Right.
Maybe that's the true success.
Yeah. Like, it's not like the bigger success and the bigger success and the bigger success. Although that's always something that we need to pretend we're keeping in mind.
Right.
Because that gives us our days some kind of focus.
Yeah.
We might already be there. We might all already be there right
This
now.
might be it. Yeah. There's a story, you brought up Dylan, and I know Adam loves Dylan, but there's a story that I heard someone share about. He went to go see Dylan. Maybe you've heard this story. He went to go see Dylan in concert, and he had done some work with him. So he got really good seats, and he was so excited. And as he's sitting in the seats, getting ready to see Dylan, the show hasn't started yet. His assistant comes through the stage side door and calls him over. And he's like, oh my goodness. She's like, come on, come backstage. And he goes, oh, I'm going backstage. So he gets backstage and he's like, back there, it's crazy. He's like, there's all this excitement and people are running around. She's like, come in and go a little further down the hallway to another room. And now there's, buckets of beer and people are sitting in seats and they're just having drinks and having a good time. And then he goes to grab a drink. She's like, no, you got to come back here to the VIP section. So he goes to the VIP section and he gets in there and now there's people walking around serving drinks. They're bringing drinks to you and there's a little nicer chairs. Now they're a little comfier. And he's like, this is great. She's like, no, Bob wants to see you. And he goes, oh man, can this get any better? And he comes around the corner and he goes in the dressing room and it's just this tiny little closet with one old guy sitting in the room. And his whole thing was that in life, we're always looking forward to the next thing, that thing, when I get there, it's going to be great. But all along, it's a different type of great. You just have to be present and go, now is the thing. This is not a later thing. This is a right now, Yeah.
That's the road.
That's it.
That's being on the road.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to get there.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't the fastest way from Orange County to Texas.
No.
That you guys took.
Not at all.
Right. That would be so boring. You might as well just fly there. You get into your little chair in the air and you take off and you land and you're there. And you're like, where am I? Because you didn't get there.
Right. Yeah. It's that process, man. And so often we want to avoid the process.
Right. Like being on the road with my older daughter with like the conversations, like she'd be like, do you think the devil actually exists? Like that's not the stuff we're talking about 100 miles.
Right.
Ago,
yeah. That doesn't happen in the 5 minutes on the way to school, Right.
Like, if you live in a motel, do they give you new shampoo every day? These are the real questions in life that somebody needs to answer.
Right.
Right. There's an area in the ocean that's 3 miles deep. That's 3 Everests. Like, what's down there?
That's insane.
So I don't know.
That's insane.
Trying to foster that creative lifestyle in my daughter, which my wife is not entirely clear that that's a great idea. She's like, you need to have a plan B.
She tends to be the practical.
That's my wife. She wants to have a plan B.
Right.
So I told my older daughter, I'm like, Mom wants you to take some Spanish in college.
Yeah.
Because she thinks that's your plan B. Uh-huh. My older daughter, Pfeiffer's like, that's totally ridiculous. Like, I'm never going to be a translator. Right. Like, I'm like, Mom said, just do it. It's like, if that's the only hoop you got to jump through.
Right.
But, so like going without a plan B.
Yeah.
Right. Isn't that what we're all talking about here
totally.
On this podcast? It's like plan A, period.
When I was a kid, magic was all I ever wanted to do. That's what I do, magic and comedy. And it's all I ever wanted to do. Then I had this other career that was a good career and it was steady and I had the 401k. And then when I got to a point where I realized I just can't do this anymore. This is not what I'm on the planet to do. I'm so grateful that I had spent years and years and years in the creative side. The thing that I wanted to be my plan A ended up being my plan B and worked out so much better. But it's interesting how sometimes I think practicality can get in the way of true purpose
or bringing practicality to the creativity. Mm. It's like practicality as a set of tools,
right,
that can be applied to things as opposed to a worldview.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? A practical worldview, is going to be boring and dry, but bringing the practical tools to the creative worldview. Yeah. Now we're building buildings and, inventing operas and doing whatever, you got to do.
Right.
And then getting it out there, getting paid for it.
Yep.
Getting people's attention.
I love that you're instilling this in your daughters, and you're trying to, add fuel to the fire of creativity. And, I think back to when or if you look back to when you were a kid, what was that like when you realized, I want to be a writer, I want to be an author, but then how do I monetize this art? How do I?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the world has changed a lot since then, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be 50 next year. So, self-publishing, the digital age, all this is, far in the future at that time. At that time, it's get the big publishing deal.
Right.
That's it.
That's it.
Your shot. There's no building your audience. There's no social media campaigns. There's no, get after it. But I do think that at the younger age, it begins with encouraging people, right? So like my younger daughter is an incredible dancer.
Yeah.
Like when I first saw her, I was like, I was ready to be the rah dad.
Yeah.
I was like, there's my girl, and then she starts and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, and then, it's like, no, it's not just because I can't dance, which I can't. So it wasn't just jealousy. I want to make that clear. But, and then she came to me last year and she's like, I'm going to quit dance. And I'm like, you're actually not. And she's like, what do you mean? I thought you said that I could do what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to follow my star. Like, I don't know, just reciting. Cause I'm like, yeah, in every other case, but not in this one. Because it's the thing you are by far the best at.
Yeah.
So like, no offense, kid, but I mean, I've seen you play softball. I've heard you sing in the chorus. I've heard you play piano. It's fun. It's good. Yeah. It's okay. But this is something where you're expressing your inner self through it.
Yeah.
And so you can't do it. So anyway, I feel like it's that conscious parenting is a little bit more than just be free.
Right.
It's also got to be like,
speaking into what you see in them and
know who you are.
Right.
And if you lose track of that, I can help you.
Yeah.
And it's not always going to feel great.
Right.
But, then we'll go get ice cream.
Yes. Lots of
you'll be
ice cream.
shaking your head and eventually you'll start talking to me again because I'm the only other guy in the car.
Yeah. Do you feel we have a responsibility when we have gifts? I mean, some people, are musical and they go, oh, well, that's just a hobby. It's something I do on the side and it's something for fun. Is there any part of you that feels like with your daughter with dance, you have to dance? If you're that great at it, there needs to be a little bit of attention to that.
Yeah. I don't know about responsibility, but I know that when you're practicing an art that you are destined or encoded to participate in, you feel differently about yourself.
Yes.
So you get self-esteem.
Yes.
You get some spiritual alignment.
Yeah.
You have a sense of things moving into the future. You get ideas that are actionable.
Yeah.
And so in that case, doing it is a really good idea. As far as somebody who would say, that I have this talent, but I'm not using it, it's probably mired in some kind of self-esteem issue or, fear of success or something like that, because doing the thing that you're great at should bring a lot of joy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. Not only to yourself, but to other people as well, you know? So you're a kid who wants to be an author and you realize, I don't know how I'm going to do this. What is the next step for you? Was it constant conflict with the family as to get a real job, kid, figure out, learn a skill that can pay the bills?
Yeah, basically. And then I got tired of that.
Yeah.
So I started hitchhiking across the country. This was my school's in New Hampshire. My family's in Pennsylvania. So I hitchhiked to Michigan and then down through Tennessee and ended up in Texas.
And you would have been how old at this time?
23.
Okay.
So that's like my second birthday, July 5th, 1992.
Amazing.
When I was like, you know what? We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't, but I hear you. You get what I'm saying. You don't, but you're kind of hearing me.
Yeah.
So I'm going.
Had you done much travel before this or?
Some travel, but it was really like running away for the third time.
Okay. Yeah.
Except I never really came back.
Yeah.
So along the way, I was working odd jobs. I was a truck stop janitor in Tennessee. I was a roofer in Texas in the summer.
Yeah.
Which is
That's that.
That's like if you're ever watching a baseball game, they're like, it's 125 degrees on the field, and you're
Right.
like, how could that be? How could that even be?
You
It's
felt
only
that.
90 degrees.
Yeah,
But
you've
I'm like,
experienced that.
oh, okay, I get it.
Right.
You know, it's like the tar,
The roof tar. Yeah,
Totally. And then I was a performance poet with a band. We went over to Central Europe, performed in Poland and the Czech Republic, which had just recently been liberated itself from communism.
Yeah.
And so I didn't end up making a living as a performance poet, but I broke free, basically. And I said, okay, so now I'm going to pursue this.
Wow.
I waited tables for a long time. Now I have a business as an editor and a ghostwriter. So I do a lot of that during the day.
Yeah.
And then I get down to my creative work at night.
Yeah.
And it feels like a good balance right now. Like, it doesn't feel like I'm selling out. I have some really great clients.
Yeah.
And I also, it keeps me humble.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, sometimes when people say, you know, what I really need in the writing world, I don't know if this is the same with what you guys are doing, but they're like, what I really need is to take 6 months off. You know, I just need to go on a retreat. And I'm like, that's the worst thing you can do, because there's no tension. There's no vessel. There's nothing to bang up against. So you're just going to stare out the window, you know, waiting for inspiration to strike. Whereas if you have 2 writing nights this week, you're going to like get there and like get to it.
Well, that's really the work, right? Is you got to sit down and put pen to paper or hit the keys. Like, if you don't make the time to do it, it's never going to happen.
Got to make the time. Got to make the time. And, you know, people make time for all kinds of things, right?
Right.
Like their aging parents, childcare, you know, out of town guests, paying the bills. It's like, why don't we make time for this?
Right. So so this is interesting. We've been talking about a lot about art and creativity. When it comes to writing, would you say writing is an art? Is the process of writing more of a structured process that allows you to document your creativity?
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends what draft you're in. Right?
Okay.
So
talk about that.
First draft is very much brainstorming.
Yeah.
Letting it get messy, letting yourself repeat things, following an instinct or an intuition. Then, you know, I mean, I've written books about sort of action steps that you can do after the first draft, which will help you see the best of what you've created, see what the through lines are, see what the overall structure might be. And then the second draft is about shaping. Okay. And some people start to rebel then. You know, they're like, I don't like to outline. I don't want to shape. That's not the wind in my hair.
What does shaping look like?
Shaping is like taking the best parts up a level.
Okay.
You know, like figuring out what you thought you were writing about that you're not. Yeah. And just stopping, you know, figuring out what's coming out that's exciting you that you want to keep writing about. Right. Because the goal is to finish a project about the same time as you're sick of it. Right. You don't want to get sick of it before you're done. Right. Because then you don't end up finishing it usually. Yep. Or you do it, but it's just a bloodless march to the end. Yeah. You know. And then the third draft is polishing, which has still got to have some kind of creative spark in it where you're like, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to get the exact right verb. That can be just as much fun as anything. Yeah. You know, it's like, so that's kind of where I am right now with my big project is in that third draft polishing. After this, it's going to be ready or not. Yeah. You know, and then the world's going to read it. But the thing about the memoir is that it's got real people in it. Right. So now I've made some appointments for December and January. Where make sure that this is the story I'm telling. Are you okay with this? If you're not, you can tell me why not. We can figure it out. I mean, there are some people I want to be friends with still. Right. So we have to figure out how we can meet in the middle. There are some people that I'm just going to be like, that's kind of what it is. Right. You know, not to be heartless, but you can write your own book. Right. Or you could have been nicer and had a different character in my book. Yeah, something like that. So, you know, some of those conversations I'm not particularly looking forward to, but I guess has the potential for being healing. Yeah. Well, and how powerful that you're actually making appointments to do that, not just being like, here's a copy of the book. Right. Tell me what you think after I publish it, you know? Right. Yeah. I want to give people opportunity to, I mean, they might say something great. It's also creatively selfish, right? They might just be like, no, you forgot this part. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, I'll add that. And so
that's good.
I'm not really expecting that. I'm expecting some tough conversations, but that's what happens when it's autobiographical, right? I mean, there are people who just create things in fiction,
right? And
then can always just be like, that wasn't you.
Right.
Be like, really? Because it's things I said, and then the person is my height and looks like me and is the same role in the family, but no, it's not you.
Right. Well, and I've heard people, when we talk about storytelling, people don't remember the story. They remember the last time they told it. Every time you tell it, it gets a little different, or you add a little piece to it. And so it's not necessarily, I think, people trying to, build things up, but it is healthy to like sit down with someone who was there and can speak into it from their perspective.
Yeah.
Is there, when you're working with writers, would you encourage people that there's like a certain time you need to set, like this is when I'm going to be done with this project, or does it depend on the work?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think we're going to set a deadline for the project, but I think you gotta set your sessions per month. Right. So people think like, oh, I'm writing, so I need to be writing all day, every day, because that's what a writer does. Put your butt in the chair, It's like, that's too much on with not enough off. And eventually it just shuts off.
Yeah.
So instead it's, I write probably 5 to 7 times a month.
Okay.
And I look forward to those times.
What do those times look like? I mean, is that a whole day? Is that a weekend? Is it,
You finish my work around 3 p.m.
Yep.
Go to the gym.
Yep.
Go to the coffee shop.
Okay.
Do my prep work there. Come back to my office, meditate.
Yep.
Then start. So probably starting around 7, going to 10 or midnight or 1 or whatever is, depending on how big the wave is that we've caught. But, but I'm not writing the next day, and I'm not writing the day after that.
Right.
So, and I think there are things you can do to prepare yourself for a writing session.
Yeah. Is that, I mean, the gym and the coffee, and is that like a mental palate cleanser? Is there something about like the physical work that then gets your mind going? What is your reasoning with that?
Yeah. I mean, the physical, I feel like my blood is oxygenated. I could just be totally in my head. I don't know what the physiology of that is. Also, it's easier for me to sit still. I can get pretty antsy.
Yeah, so you've gotten a lot of energy out.
I've gotten that
burned
out.
some calories,
but I think probably the most important thing is I've dropped down out of my head.
Yeah.
So my head has ideas.
Yeah.
But my body has knowledge. Of like, and my best ideas come like after having run 2 miles or 3 miles or whatever. Where I'm like, this is actually what that has to happen. It's like more of lived experience now.
That's really good.
And that's what meditation does too also. So if I can do the running and the meditation, then nobody can stop me then.
Yeah. I've just in the last 6 months, meditation's become like a daily thing for me. And it's insane how different I feel about the day, how much more creative I get. Even if I'm going like, okay, I'm just going to take 10 minutes right now, you know? And then at the end of that 10 minutes, I feel like I had a nap. I feel like I'm just re-energized.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Fantastic.
I was at a writers conference in San Francisco, and I came to my car and I was like, that's really weird. There's like some clothes on the street. I'm like, well, that's weird. Those are my clothes on the street. I'm like, that's weird. They're covered in glass. Like, that's weird. Like, why is there all this broken glass in the back seat? That's weird. Where are my suitcases? Like, where's all my recording equipment? Like that getting out of, shock and being like, you've been robbed of everything. But I had meditated that morning. So it wasn't like I was like, oh, I love the people who did this to me. Right. Everything happens for a reason. It wasn't like that. It was like, okay, I guess I got to go to the police station.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I wasn't adding stress to the stress. I was like, now we have to go to Hertz.
Yes.
And now we have to do this. And now we have to call the conference people and say, you know what? I can't come tonight.
Yeah.
I'll probably be there tomorrow, And so just kind of walking through daily stresses with a little bit more like, let's just be in it and not be out of it.
Right.
And then eventually ended up in the San Francisco Police Department. I think it was the Chinatown Police Department, which has like, they have merch there.
What?
So it's like
they sell merch at the police
department? It
department?
has like Chinese dragons on it. But if you go to the North Beach one, it has like the Leaning Tower of Pisa,
That's amazing.
And so I was like, so a couple of days later, I was like, I totally recovered. And I'm like, I'm going back to get a hat. You know, I mean, I'm like,
I need a souvenir from this experience.
So I go in, and all these guys are all like aging hippies. I mean, and the guy's like, "Oh yeah, well, we have 3 bodies in the room where we keep that stuff right now. So can you come back later?" And I'm like, you know what? Actually, I think I'm good.
That's great. That's great.
So,
When did meditation become a part of your practice?
I was living in Northern California in my early 30s, probably about 20 years ago.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about it, except there are people who say, like, I've been a meditator for 20 years.
Right.
And I'm like, well, you shut that. I mean, who cares? Like,
Right.
Did you meditate today or not?
Yeah.
That's the only question that really needs to be asked, you know?
That's great.
So, you know, my wife can tell when she comes down in the morning and she can smell the incense. She's like, he's going to be nicer today.
Wow.
Because he's kind of gotten into his flow.
Uh-huh.
She also says, run till you're nice. But, you know, I don't know. We don't need to get into that. Hi, honey.
It's true, man. I do. I'm not a runner, but I take these walks. We've got this incredible walking path in our city. And so I'll do like 3 to 5 miles in the morning, just a nice walk. And then I'll meditate. The days that I do that, it is just, it's cleared my family and everyone else that it's, I mean, it's like you're on a different wavelength.
Right.
It's so weird. Like, why would I not do this every day?
Right. So it kind of comes back to like what I feel like your podcast is getting at in part, which is how do you authorize yourself to be a creative person?
Right.
How do you push yourself to your limits? How do you stick with it in the face of either rejection or even worse, which is just minor success? Like minor success can undo your resolve even worse than success.
You stop getting you're not as hungry.
Oh, I'm just D-list, you know, and so you just kind of quit. But, you know, just putting these practices in place or saying, I'm going to bring out my best today.
Right.
And whether that's for 100,000 people or, you know, 100 people or just myself, this is how we're going to do it.
And it's so important for artists who, you know, we talk about, we don't have the crazy boss. We don't have the office hours. All of that is great, but we also have to discipline ourselves and put things in place to ensure that we don't burn out and that we keep the work flowing, you know?
Yeah.
And there's especially, you know, because in any type of artistry or entertainment, the hours are weird often, you know, you're flying around a lot. It can be exhausting. And there's this temptation I have that when I'm traveling a lot, when I'm on the road and I'm working, I come home and I want to just veg out. Like I want to just check out, you know, socially, not see friends. I want to not really do any work, but it's that moment of going, no, I have to keep the discipline going so that the creative vessel can keep working, you know? And if I miss a few days of that ritual, it doesn't go so well. For sure.
For sure. And it's like breaking into it as like, this is my life, right? I mean, this is something that we all have to do at some point.
Right.
It's that we're not waiting for next week or next year, or there's no plan B. This is life. And, you know, I get accused of being like a bit of a workaholic. Yeah. But it doesn't feel like work. So it's just, this is a way of being alive. Yeah. So we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this, you know, probably need to sleep then. And then we're going to do this, you know, and it's just feed it. Yeah. And when you have loved ones like we have in our lives and you have responsibilities, some of those responsibilities are financial. So you have to come through on those. Right. And I feel like we grew up at a time where at least, you know, those had some kind of ultimate reality. Maybe it's because those people were born in a depression or something, you know, where it's just like, that's something to really fear. Right. As opposed to just make happen. We have a lot more of a fluid approach to that now. Where it's like, yeah, I totally got to do that. I got to make bank. Yeah. I'm on it. Right. Do we need to talk about that more? Or can we talk about something else? Yeah. You know? Yeah. We don't need to worry constantly about it. Right. It's such a healthier way to live. Yeah. And I've done it both ways. That's the thing too. I mean, even recently, you know, you get 2 daughters, you get braces put on at the same day and you go, wow, that's a lot of money. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, time to go get on an airplane. Right, you know? Exactly, because you can do something about it. Right. You know, you have a sense of your own inner resourcefulness. Yeah. where you're like, I know how to do this.
Right.
I mean, it's not to say that it's already done. I got to call these people. I got to email these people back. I got to call that person and see if he'll connect me with that woman,
Right.
you know, whatever. But you've had the experience of making it happen.
Yeah. See, and that drive that you have to get things done. There's a lot of kids that have the story of, I left home and I took a train and I went to this other state and then they never did the thing. So you end up in Texas after going to all these different places. When was the first time that you felt like, oh, I'm actually doing the thing I want to do?
So when I got to Dallas, I sprung for a room at the Red Roof Inn. And I've
stayed in so many of those.
I've been tenting and staying with drivers.
Yeah.
You know, but I was like, you know what, something's going to be different about this. And I wrote a poem there that is the poem that I used to open all of my shows with.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like my statement. It was called The Hitchhiker, but it was like my statement. That was probably the time in which I realized not only have I gotten out, but I've gotten in, right? So it's like the escape had become freedom. Pretend you are the driver of a truck. Late night Mexican food and caffeine an uneasy mix. And you have 300 miles to go. And if you took drugs, you'd take them now. All night, flocks of fog have bombed your windshield. And oncoming drivers seem to need their brights. And they're putting you through the walls again. And you see a hitchhiker. I'm not suggesting anything. I hitch during the day, carry a sign to show I have direction in my life. Suppose you do pick up the kid. She's a girl, long hair swept under her cap for grit, but she has freckles and makes nervous talk about guns. So you start a little conversation. Coffee? How old are you? Siblings? Maybe you discover exotic vacations in her hometown, exchange cultural backgrounds, and silently okay the other. Maybe you ask questions about the natural world. My only wish for you is 100 miles later you have gone past the weather. To your parents, your ex-lover, the worst decision you ever made. You force it from its corner. Let the miles surround and inform it. Maybe you're a Jewish kid who wanted to be FDR but couldn't even win a local election. Or a teacher, Mr. Fourth Grade, walking the fine line between social work and shut the hell up. Or maybe it's just life. Didn't fall like it might. Okay, but it needs talking. Hours and hours of talking. The hitcher looks a little sleepy-eyed. Fuck her. You're the driver. It's raining now, and every 10 minutes the hills charge you like wild bulls. And you know you won't feel better tomorrow unless you feel worse today. And let it pass, like a song on the radio when you're glad to hear the station break.
Yeah.
Right? So I wasn't running away from these things anymore. Now I was like, you know what? This is the beginning of something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Not viewing it as like, you know, you're a victim of your circumstances, but, you know, there's an opportunity ahead.
Right.
That's beautiful, man.
They'll have some edge to it. You know, there's probably going to be some edge for my whole life, you know?
Yeah.
Some iconoclasm.
Yeah.
You know, but it is what it is, you know?
That's awesome, man. And when did you publish your first book?
So my first book was published when I was kind of old, I guess, 41, 42, 49 now. I studied with the poet Robert Bly at NYU, and he said poets who make it in their 20s are ruined. Meaning, it just goes to their head. They just think that everything they're going to do is great.
Everything's golden.
And, you know, they'll never be able to handle the adversity. He said poets who make it in their 40s are bitter. He's like, you should make it in your 30s. I mean, he was kidding. Like, you can't say when you're going to make it.
Funny.
So I think I was like 41 or 42. And I'm like, well, I guess I just got grandfathered in a little bit. I didn't feel bitter yet.
Funny.
But, you know,
there's a lot of correlation there with comedians, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's wild. So
you want to do it for a life.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah.
That's great. And now you help other people do it.
I help other people do it.
When did that come into play? Was that just people saw what you were doing and said, hey, can you help me with this? And you realized there was a need for it? Or what was the...
So I have to give my wife credit for this.
Yeah.
Because we were on a hike and I was working as an associate literary agent at the time.
Okay.
And I heard about these people who were they were called book doctors then.
Mm-hmm.
They probably are still script doctors, as a term. But now that independent editors or developmental editors, that's become a really serious niche in the industry. There's a lot more respectability towards that. But at the time, I was like, wow, isn't it funny that this guy's getting paid $5,000 to do what I get paid $50 to do?
Right.
I'm like, it's funny, right?
Yeah.
She's like, that's not funny. That's pathetic. You're pathetic.
Your wife said that?
You need to get your act together. And she was just
amazing.
killing me.
That is amazing.
We ended up ending the hike in different trails.
Oh,
We did not go home together. I don't know who got the car.
That was not a good day for the family.
That was March 6th, 2000, when my business was born.
Wow.
And I was like, all right. Right.
So out of an argument over
yes,
why are we not taking the opportunities here?
Exactly. So I didn't get from 50 to 5,000 that next day.
Right.
But I got my brochure together and I took it to the Minuteman Press. I don't know, you guys have that out here. They print it up.
It's like a speedy printer shop. Okay.
500 of them. I actually took a woodcut from the Moby Dick that I had loved so much as a kid.
Okay.
Put it on the cover.
Okay.
And the guy's printing it. And I'm like, I just want you to know I don't have permission for that. Like, that's a famous woodcut. He's like, I know, but you ran into the designer at a party and he was drunk and he said you could use it.
Oh my gosh.
Like, wow.
Yeah, what? That's amazing.
That sounds like exactly what happened. So I'm like, people are going to help me on my journey, Right.
That's amazing. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you then go into working with all these different people who are trying to take, everyone says they want to write a book, right? What's it like when you sit down with someone who's like, I got this idea or I've got this script. What is your first step you take with them to help them kind of produce something?
Right. So, I mean, if somebody is serious about doing it,
right,
we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't really matter how good it is at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It matters how much they want to get it done.
Okay.
So I'm trying to assess some sense of the will of the individual.
Yeah.
Because if it's time, it's not necessarily will. It could just also be not time for them.
Okay.
Right. But if it's time, then let's go. Then I ask them to send me everything they have. And they're usually like, oh, I just need to edit this, or you don't really want to see that. And I'm like, you got to send it all to me because you have lost perspective on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so I don't care if it's repetitive. I don't care if it's missing gerunds. I mean, that's not what I'm looking for right now.
Right.
I'm looking for where the heart of it is.
Right.
What the connections are. So that's if they have something generated. If they don't have anything generated, then we meet either remotely or in person and I record them and they just talk.
Yeah.
And then we transcribe it and start getting the connections and the structure from that.
That's great.
But, I mean, there's a process and it's just all comes down to how serious somebody is.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And how quick they want to work and how much time and energy and resource they want to invest in it.
And how capable they will be to conquer the inevitable internal obstacles that arise.
Yeah. Is that like like writer's block or
writer's block? Every stage has its own fear. Especially like towards the end, people get worried about like if it's good enough, which really means like people are going to read it.
Right.
And now what? It's not everything it could ever be.
Right.
No, it's not. But
See,
it's good though.
That's something that is common with every artist we talk about. We compare ourselves and what we're creating to these, Picassos and all this stuff. And you got to realize they didn't even know when they were making that, when they're painting the ceiling, Michelangelo's painting and all this stuff. At a certain point, you just have to stop. At a certain point, you had to turn in the work.
Right.
So we look at these great, musicians or artists and we think, oh, they created this pinnacle of art. And it's like, no, they just at some point stopped working on that piece and put it out and started working on the next one.
Yep. Yeah. And it doesn't, and things can be uneven, one works better than another, but you just got to keep going.
Yeah.
And the skills that you learn, you can continue to apply, refresh, develop new ones. You can get better. Right?
That's
isn't
great.
that the thing about a creative life, is that you can get better?
Yeah.
And,
and to, self-audit, not just to make sure you're still progressing, but to go, okay, look, it's better than it was 6 months ago. It's different than it was 2 years ago. And to celebrate the process.
Right.
Right. So we have so many different people who listen who are in different aspects of the arts, everything from painters to actors and musicians and directors and comedians. And all of them at certain points struggle with the creative process or writer's block. What is something that you found that is maybe not a surefire way to like engage when you feel like you've hit a wall, but what do you encourage people to do when they feel like I actually sat down, I made those appointments and I got there and I've got nothing?
See, I don't think you would ever be in that situation, though. I think it's more,
you think it's just, that's people that say that are ones that didn't actually put their butt in the seat?
For sure.
That's
for
so
sure.
good.
So I would say, the two things that if I can remember these two mantras on a writing session, like one is keep it moving.
Yeah.
Right. So that, you only have a mindset at a time.
Yeah.
So you're going to stumble across a problem that you're not going to be able to solve.
Yeah.
So you can either stop right there and try to solve, or you can just keep going and just say, yep, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be there. And if I turn around and stare at it, I'm going to be like, Lot's wife.
Yeah.
Looking at
pillar of
Sodom,
salt.
Into, right. It's like, what is there to see back there? Like what you screwed up, like it's going to still be there, so keep it moving, and have fun.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like stupid fun, but I mean like intellectual aliveness, like the joy of discovery, not just try to have a attitude of self bemusement, but also start moving the material into a direction that's more fun for you. Right. So a lot of times people aren't writing as well as they can be. It's not because they're not writing well. It's because they haven't found the subject matter or the tone of voice in which their fit is better.
Right.
So keep moving towards that joy.
Yeah.
And assume, which is a big assumption,
right,
that the joy you experience is going to be the joy that someone else experiences. This is where it breaks down for a lot of people. They're like, well, I think that's great.
Right.
I'm interested in that.
But are other people going to care?
Right.
I was listening to Phil Rosenthal, who wrote Everybody Loves Raymond. And he said he's like, I figured out the secret for me of how to write this show. He's like, we kept trying to make it wide so it would relate to everybody. He said, the more I just wrote about my family, people would come up on the street. We'd put something in the show that literally my mother-in-law said, and they'd come up and go, my mother-in-law is exactly the same way. And that whole thing of not thinking what you're going to write or what you're going to create because it's personal to you isn't going to be personal to others, to realize we all are on this same human experience and we're all going through the same sort of things. And
exactly. I couldn't agree with that more. So this memoir is written to my older daughter.
Yeah.
And I know that if I can strike that tone of voice, that she wants to hear me talk in, it's bringing in, potentially just enormous audience, but I'm not thinking about them. I'm only thinking about her. There are things about me that she doesn't like. Like she says, I don't like country music and I don't like poems and I don't like it when you act pretentious. And I'm like, great. We'll make sure that none of those three things are in there. Yeah. But, so yeah.
I love that as you're describing, breaking through this writer's block or the fact that it doesn't exist if you really just sit down and do the work. But you talk about pursuing the joy, which is so funny because I think people look at writing as work, or they look at, artists want to be free. We don't want discipline. We want to just kind of let the creativity flow when it comes. But what you're saying is when you take this approach of sitting and doing the work and you're looking for where's the joy in it, you're getting both.
Yeah, you are getting both. For sure.
That's such a different way to look at it. It's so healthy. And I think that not just writers, but anybody who's trying to do anything creative can find deep value in that, Yep. Is there anything else that you think, that you would talk to writers about that also would help comedians or actors or people who are just in this creative realm, what's something else that you've learned that you try to live by or try to
I mean, I
keep
guess
as a
when I look
focus?
back over the last 10 years, I would say that not everything I did was as good as something else that I did, but it all had to happen.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes when you're in the middle of a project it's good, but it's not great.
Yes.
Or you haven't quite found the key that turns the engine. Like you just keep going, like it's keep it moving. But now we're talking about like a 10 or 20 year period of your life, Right. Then you get through to something where you're like, now I'm really cooking.
Wow.
And now it's like, wow, this is exactly, so this is like musicians, we're putting out albums and, the quality isn't always going to be even.
Right.
Right. You're going to have a down year. You're going to have an off album
but you wouldn't see that as a failure because you put out a thing that wasn't,
I mean, you got to keep going because the people who are left at the end are the people who kept going.
Right.
Right. So it's like,
right.
Those Venn diagrams, which are like the circles with the other circles, so it's like, I did one once where it was like the people who don't make it is the big circle and the little circle of the people who quit is contained inside the circle of people who didn't make it. Right. Like if you quit, you're done.
Yeah.
And so like, don't quit is probably the biggest piece of advice that I have. I also made a Venn diagram of songs that should not be covered. And
I want to hear about
songs that Sarah McLachlan has covered or will. I put that inside that first one. And it's kind of the same concept,
that's amazing.
Expressed a little differently.
Oh, my one of my biggest musical frustrations is when someone does a cover and they didn't do anything different. It just sounds exactly like a karaoke version.
Right.
I can't stand it, man.
Yep.
Sorry. Weezer just did the Toto song, Africa, which
that's not bad.
It's not bad. It sounds great. And
bad.
I've been a Weezer fan since I was a kid. Like I friggin' love Weezer, but I'm like, it's not different enough. Like you almost just go like, is that Weezer or is that, know?
You're right.
Whereas
Ryan Adams doing the whole Taylor Swift album.
Oh yeah.
That's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's crazy. That album came out and like within a couple months, he just like, I'm going to release the entire album. And they all sound different.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, man. All right. I had a couple questions I wrote down. So I just want to take a look. Is that okay? All right. Here we go. This is the hard.
Sweat a little bit now.
Can you talk a little bit more about just giving ourselves the permission to fail? Like how important is it, as artists? Because we start, we compare ourselves to other people, but it's like everybody sucked at one point with something,
Yeah, so I don't think of failure as any kind of permanent situation. Like if I write a paragraph, there's a sentence that's a failure.
Okay.
And there's a sentence that's going to be good.
Yeah.
And there's a sentence that's just been perfect.
Yeah.
And if anybody touches it, copy editor, proofreader, like I'm going to have their head, So it's like, is that one a success and one a failure? It's just part of the ongoing process of creating something where it's just constantly weeding out the things that aren't working or bringing them up a level if they've got potential.
Yeah.
So I don't think failure is a really useful concept for creativity. I think it's just like, that just didn't work. What do you guys say in the comic business like that? That bombed.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. But that's another thing too with jokes. I mean, this week, so I'm doing the Magic Castle this week. So tonight's my last night of 7.
Hey, can you get me in?
Absolutely.
Just kidding.
Let's go.
I just heard about it for the first time.
Oh my gosh,
an hour
man.
ago, and now I'm all like,
let's go. I'm leaving in a few, 30 minutes. I'll head out and we'll just jump in the car. We'll go, man. We'll do it. It's what's fun about that is you're in the same theater, 3 shows a night, 7 days a week. So I'm going to 21 shows this week. And what I love is you'll have a little moment where you go, oh, what if the next time I do the show, I do this? And it's not like the next time 2 days or 3 days from now in a different venue. I can try it in the same spot with a similar audience 20 minutes from now.
Yeah.
It's the best, man.
Right. That's what revision is for writing.
Yeah.
And so there's identifying what needs to be changed or improved.
Right.
that's just part of it. That's just what we're doing.
So good. Adam and I were talking about the Beatles' White Album. They're releasing these tracks that, early versions of tracks that have become classics. Mm-hmm. Have you heard any of those? Or?
Yeah. In fact, I use one of those when I tour my writing method, which is called Finish Your Book in 3 Drafts. It's my most recent book on writing. And I'll play like John's acoustic version of Sexy Sadie, which he wrote in India, and lyrics are different and he doesn't really know what he's doing. And it's like some weird, room recorder.
Yeah.
And then play the final version, which starts with a piano that he didn't play.
Right.
And then Ringo's drums. And then, he's singing it, but he's got a lot more oomph behind it because he's with his group,
Right. Yeah.
And they've got their sarcastic backing vocals going on. And the whole thing just sounds like a final product. Like you could just listen to it over and over again. So people come to that and they say, oh, I could never write anything like that. But, how did it start? Right. It started as an idea. It started as chords. It started as some lyrics. It's just, and then you got to go through the whole process. Some people are lazy.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, I didn't get it. I didn't write Sexy Sadie with all the instrumentation the first time around. So I guess I'm not good.
Neither did John Lennon.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So just and sometimes when you show people examples from other arts, it helps them see their own art.
Yeah.
Right. Like if I were going to talk to writers about Hans Christian Andersen's short story, The Ugly Duckling, remember The Ugly Duckling?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So the original title of that is The Young Swans.
Okay.
Which is not a good title.
No.
Also gives the whole thing away.
Right. Right.
So got to change that. People think like famous writers are geniuses and stuff.
Yeah.
And they don't have to go through what we have to go through. But you could just produce umpteen number of examples of the fact that actually they just kept going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they worked and they came up with either a bunch of good ideas or a couple of good ideas, and they just came back to it the next day.
Yeah. There's something about we've talked about it a lot today, but just not quitting, the resilience. Even in comedy, Rodney Dangerfield, who a lot of people look at as like, he came up with this character, and that's, because he came up with this character, it was just smooth sailing for him. What most people don't know is he started in comedy when he's in his 20s. When he's in his late 30s, was like, I can't feed my family, went and sold aluminum siding for like 15 years, then came back, then came up with the character.
Wow.
And, we're always comparing ourselves to the final draft of an artist,
right, Right.
Rather, that's beautiful, man, to just go like, look, you can write something, you can put it out there.
Yeah. I mean, if you got the idea to do it, it means you're supposed to do it. So that's all you need to know.
Yeah.
And then, the question of whether or not it's ego or positive self-esteem or whatever it is that keeps an artist going in the face of criticism.
Yep.
Harness it.
Yeah.
Figure out how to get it and get it.
Yeah. Embrace it.
Yep.
That's so good, man. Man, I'm so grateful that you took the time to have this conversation.
This is fun. I got to come back to Southern California more often.
Oh, we'll do it, man. We'll go to the Magic Castle. We'll go to Fat Sal's and eat a sandwich with French fries on it.
Hey, man, can you do a favor when you do the Magic Castle thing? Can you not put the name on it? Because then I heard you can put that on eBay and you can make a lot of money. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. A friend of mine told me about that.
That's amazing. How can people get a hold of you? How can they find what you're doing? If they want to reach out to you about a project, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah. So bookarchitecture.com, all one word. Sometimes I spell that out for people who are like trying to get me to pay my National Grid bill, but it's just book and architecture put together.com. I always said if someone can't spell architecture, we probably don't need to work together. No, I'm kidding. I don't mean that. I really don't mean that. And, things like, my work, my clients' work, tongue-in-cheek tweets. It's all there.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. If you're listening right now, go click on the lovely photo that we have there. It'll flip around and we'll have show links and you can click on it and go right over to the website. Check it out. Send a message. Work on a project.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, buddy. I'm going to turn this off. We'll keep talking. Wow, what a great conversation with Stuart. When I first walked in to meet Stuart, this is one of those rare podcasts where I was introduced to him through a text message from a friend. And a friend who I respect and I love just said, you've got to meet this guy and you should do a podcast with him. And it is purely because of the relationship I had with my friend who sent the text that I was like, okay, let's do it. And I just text Stuart and I said, let's get together. Adam says we should get together. And if Adam says we should get together, we should. Let's do it. And so I walked into Adam's house to meet Stuart. And from the minute I shook his hand and looked him in the eye, I knew this was going to be a great conversation. He's one of these people that just has a presence about him. He's super connected. You can tell that, like, he's not looking past you at a party to see if there's someone more important behind him, behind you. He's not thinking as you're talking about what he's going to say, and so he's not listening to you. He's kind of formulating his own response. No. This guy is he's like locked in and engaged. And so it was great to hear him talk about even how meditation and different practices about, even his exercise and that kind of stuff that he puts in his life. You can tell, man, that this guy doesn't just talk about it, that he really is living it, that he's really trying to stay connected and stay present. And I thought that was so cool. So my breaking points today, coming away from the conversation with Stuart, number one was his intentionality in his raising of his daughter. He talked about this point with his daughter where, things weren't going so great, and he just was like, okay, we're going to spend more time together, and how he's really spurring her and trying to foster her creativity. When I was a kid, I have a lot of friends who are artists who have tried to tell me before that, if you have a good family growing up, then you can't be a comedian or you can't be funny. And that's it's just not true. It's not true. I mean, that's sadly the case for a lot of people. I was lucky enough to have my parents who, even though their relationship didn't last together, they always supported my sister and I in everything that we did, and had this ability to, when we'd show like a single spark of interest, they would just throw fire on it. They just, I think it's throw fuel is the term. Anyway, they would not just go like, oh, that's great that he's interested in magic. They would find out if there was a magic club to take me to. They would drive me to a magic shop. They would take me to brunch at the Magic Castle. And I'm forever grateful for my parents doing that and doing that in my life. And Katie and I were even talking recently, and we shared it here on the podcast, about how her dad had such an impact, and her mom as well, but her dad just never once telling her because she was a girl she couldn't do something. And so it was a good challenge and an encouragement to me, being a dad with young daughters, to want to make sure I'm doing everything I can do to really encourage them and build them up. So that was huge for me personally, hearing from Stuart, and just hearing from another guy who's trying to make good choices for his kids and with his kids, and help them find their uniqueness and their own path in this world. So the second thing that challenged me was when he talked about the depth of the ocean and how there's so many things we don't know and we don't understand. And it's a good reminder. I spend so much time talking about wonder and trying to surround myself with things that I don't figure out, just to remind me that I don't have it all figured out. And one of the dangers of doing a show like I do that is so focused on wonder is that, the more you talk about something, the more comfortable you get with it. And I don't want to ever get comfortable with the fact that I don't have life figured out. Which is part of why doing these conversations and having this podcast has been so incredible, is because we get to talk to friends that, were strangers moments ago, and we get to hear from people who have all this life experience that is different than ours. And I think it's just such a healthy place for us to be, a place of wonder and a place of mystery and a place of hope and possibility. And I totally took that away from this conversation with Stuart. I felt like he lives in this zone of hope and optimism, and even talking about his relationship with his father, and that he feels like there's still possibility for atonement, as he said. That even all these years later, he's almost 50 years old. Even all these years later, he hasn't given up hope that something could change with their relationship, and that just fully encouraged me. The last thing that I'll share here on the breaking point from this conversation with Stuart that I'm taking away and I'm carrying this week is the importance of authorizing yourself. Man, that was so good when he said that. The importance of authorizing yourself. As artists, oftentimes I feel like we make the mistake of waiting for someone to discover us, or waiting for someone to give us this chance. Years ago, comedians would think, if I just got on the Tonight Show, then I would really be able to have fame or have a career or make something of myself. But the truth is we have to give ourselves permission. We don't have to wait for someone else to tell us what to do or what we can do. Adam, the same friend who introduced me to Stuart, he sent me this quote from Napoleon Hill the other day that really hit me, and it said, "The only breakthrough anyone can afford to rely upon is a self-made break." And man, it's so good. We don't go through life alone. We can't do life alone. We need other people around us. But it's taking things we learn from others and applying them, and taking the initiative to authorize ourselves and give ourselves permission to do the work that we want to do. Dude, that just gets me fired up. So I'm super stoked. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I would love to hear what your takeaways were. I'd love to hear what your breaking point was. What is something that you're feeling like you're having more success in? What's an area where you feel like maybe you're about to break down in? And how could we maybe help as a community here at About to Break? Call us on the break line. Let us know what your takeaways were. 323-524-7456. Again, 323-524-7456. If you've got a story to share, if you've got a lesson you've learned, we'd love to hear it. Thanks so much, friends, and we will see you next time.